Hello everyone. Welcome to another part of What If Deku Ran an Orphanage. If you enjoy the story, please like, subscribe and share the video. It really helps me out. I did not write the story. The original writer is Kyodon. Please go support them. Now let us dive in. Project Seed. Hello. My name is Uchibara. I am a scientist working at the Midoriya Foundation under my girlfriend, Miru Jiken. And I am in charge of Project Seed. Project Seed is the experimentation of chaos energy's effect on plant life via gemstone gardening. The process is simple. I am going to grow various plants with fractals placed underneath them where their roots will grow. These plants will include a sakura tree, a rose, a Venus flytrap, and a cactus. These will of course be grown in the lab's greenhouse experimentation chamber. I will record my results once something significant has popped up. Well, that was faster than expected. It's only been 3 days, but already there have been significant results. Both the sakura tree and cactus have started growing far faster than they should. The cactus is almost fully grown and the tree is halfway there, but no petals have grown. As for the rose and flytrap, both of them had appeared to make no progress. So I decided to check on the seeds, only to find that they seemed to have exploded. With these results, I've come to a hypothesis. Handling chaos energy requires a large amount of mass. Hence the tree and cactus grow at accelerated rates. It's likely they used energy from the fractal in order to hasten their growth in order to survive. However, the rose and flytrap didn't have the ability to grow at that rate naturally and thus couldn't endure the energy's strain. It's also possible that it has to do with how each plant material handles chaos energy. I've heard, for example, that cacti are very good at absorbing radiation. This could be why it adapted so well, despite not being as big as the tree. I'm going to add some more kinds of plants of various sizes to see if my hypothesis proves correct. This project has been progressing far faster than expected. Firstly, I managed to confirm my last hypothesis. Both the average size of the subject when fully grown and the materials from which the subject is made of are very important factors in deciding if a plant can survive chaos energy infusion. Notably, plants that require large amounts of sunlight seem to do the best. The same trend of accelerated growth or explosions. Some plants manage to grow past the seed stage before exploding, but not very much. As for the first 2 plants, the sakura tree has had to be relocated to our outdoor facility. For 2 reasons. Firstly, it's continued its accelerated growth rate. It's almost double the size of a normal sakura tree. Secondly would be its unique mutation. Normally, the cherry blossoms on a sakura tree are pink, however, the flowers on this tree have grown in a variety of colors and are already fully bloomed. But those colors aren't just for show. Each flower, while they are completely normal when still attached to the tree, when they separate from the tree and touch non-plant-based life form, have a variety of effects. All of which I have tested on various lab animals, those poor souls. The red flowers, upon contact, rapidly heated up before exploding. The explosion was rather small. It didn't even immediately kill the rat we tested it on, although it did die later from its injuries. The yellow flowers cause whatever they touch to become magnetic for about 5 minutes. The magnetic force is quite weak, so making contact with this flower is mostly harmless. The green flowers will cause whoever they touch to experience feelings of intense nausea and dizziness. The blue flowers will cause their victims to lose gravity for about 3 minutes. The purple flowers cause drowsiness. The white flowers seem to pacify whomever they touch, to the point where they have no desire to harm anyone. Note, these could be especially useful later on. I will ask Mai to contact Mr. Midoriya about these later. Lastly, the black flowers are rather interesting. When they come in contact with a living thing, they start to eat away at it. Like acid, but not at the same time. It's like it deletes living matter it comes into contact with. However, while this sounds incredibly dangerous, the process is extremely slow. So much so that none of the test animals actually died or were even significantly injured during the tests. Although I have noted that the little bits of them that were eaten away by the flower do not heal. I'd hate to think of what would happen if someone were to consume one of these. As you can tell, it's very problematic for these to just be falling off the tree and blowing into the wind. As such, it will be moved to a special location should it grow too big for this one. Now as for the cactus, it's completely transformed into a steel-like substance. It's very similar to steel in both form and function, but upon closer analysis it's still formed of plant cells. I would say with this that my conclusion that chaos energy is behind quirks is all but proven, as these plants have undeniably obtained quirks. This is a very exciting development, as no plant life has ever been found to have quirks until now. And I think I understand why. It's been shown that the vast majority of plant life is not suited to absorb chaos energy in the same way that animals and humans are. Even the plants that were able to handle the energy only managed to obtain it after being directly rooted to a fractal. Perhaps the reason there are fewer animals with quirks than humans is because humans simply have an easier time absorbing and processing chaos energy. I'll have to inform Mai about this. There's still so much to test. So much left unknown. I really have to thank Mai and Mr. Midoriya for this opportunity. This is some of the most exciting work I've done in my life. I've made another major discovery. But before that, I want to make a quick update on the first 2 test subjects. The cactus has stopped growing and is now about 10 feet tall and 2 feet wide. Its toughness surpasses steel, and it is an exceedingly strong material. Resistant to heat, cold, and pretty much everything you can think of, except for some reason it has a weakness to focused points. Things like spikes, bullets, or piercing weapons are rather effective against metal. You can also cut off pieces of this metal cactus, and not only will it remain in its metal state, but the cactus will even grow back what was cut off, although this is a very slow process. As for the tree, it's currently at 45 feet and still growing, although the rate of growth seems to slow the bigger it gets. This seems to be a common occurrence. The effects of the flowers also seem to be increasing in power as it grows. This could become concerning later on. But enough about that for now. I have something absolutely groundbreaking. So I decided to plant several more sakura trees and cacti to see if they would gain similar quirks to the first 2 test subjects. But they didn't gain similar quirks, they gained the exact same quirks. All of them. This could mean that plants will always gain the same quirk, depending on the type. This could mean we could farm all new kinds of materials and bring forth so many new possibilities. I'm going to need to expand our research team before I can continue with this, but I'm excited to say Project Seed is a massive success. I think I'll see if I can get my sisters and mother involved in this project. It does seem a little wrong to try and get my family into high positions like this, but they're the only people I know who can help me with this. Hopefully I can convince them. Project Chaos Control. This is my Jiken, head scientist of the Midoriya Foundation Science Division. And today I start one of the most important projects in my life. Project Chaos Control. Project Chaos Control revolves around learning about chaos energy and how to utilize it. And first things first, I need to find out how to obtain chaos energy. Currently, the only way we can obtain chaos energy is by draining it from Jin or by stabbing a Grim, although that may be dangerous, meaning we have no reliable way of obtaining chaos energy. If we lose Jin, we no longer have access to chaos energy, which is unacceptable. So that begs the question, where can we find more chaos energy? The answer, people. After doing some extensive tests on myself, I figured out how chaos energy within a person sustains itself. Basically, humans and animals can convert things into chaos energy. These things mainly being food and water. Plants are also capable of this, converting sunlight into chaos energy. Now obviously, I can't just stab people and drain their chaos energy, so I need to find another way to get it. And well, I have a theory, given that people are born with the potential for quirks, it's like that chaos energy can be found within a human, male reproductive fluids. This is not gonna but fun to explain to my boss. Alright. Good news. After obtaining a couple gallons of the white stuff, I figured out that there is in fact chaos energy located in it. So I didn't have to explain this to my boss for nothing. Bad news though, it's a very small amount, and there's no way to replenish it once we've drained it. But that doesn't mean we've hit a dead end. For now, I'll have to put this part of the project to the side. Or rather, I'll have to separate this from Project Chaos Control. We'll call it Project Chaos Creation. But not for long. You see, I have 2 more employees coming in soon. They should be able to help. Chol sighed and set the paperwork to the side of her desk before looking over to Izuku, who was staring down at his paperwork without doing any, as if in a trance. Sir, is everything okay? Huh? Izuku suddenly snapped out of his trance and looked up at her. Yeah, it's just, I have to prepare for some new arrivals that are complicated. Chol raised an eyebrow. I don't recall DOC sending us any new children. Did they just give a notice? Izuku shook his head. No. It's not DOC. For once I wish it was just them springing things on me with no notice. Because this is somehow worse. Flashing back to that night, Izuku was lying in bed and just answered to phone to his unwanted caller. Izuku, it's been a long time. His father said, in his gravelly voice, that sounded like he smoked 1,000,000 cigarettes. Not long enough, Izuku said with perhaps the most venom in his voice he'd ever had. What on earth could you possibly be calling me about? I hope you don't think I'm going to give you any money. No. Come on, I'm not that stupid. His father laughed. No, instead I'm gonna give you something for once. Izuku raised an eyebrow in confusion. What on earth could his deadbeat dad want to give him? What is it? Surprised you didn't hang up on me yet. His father said, before explaining. So funny story, after I left your mother and you, I started doing my thing. And I found this lady who had a quirk that gave her 3 separate bodies, so naturally, I got her bed and well, I'm sure you're smart enough to put the pieces together. May I remind you that Mom and you aren't officially divorced? Izuku said bitterly. And whose fault is that? I told your mother I didn't want her anymore, and she still refuses to cooperate with me. His father scoffed. But back to what I was saying, so I did my thing, but I got so excited, I forgot to wear any protection. Izuku's eyes widened. What? Surprise you have half-sisters, his father laughed. 3 of them. Much to my dismay. Izuku was stunned into silence. He had sisters. 3 of them. Of course, he'd long since gotten used to his family expanding, but this was something different. So yeah, at first I was like shit, gotta get the hell out of here, but the woman wasn't as easy to leave as your mother, mostly because she was just that amazing in the sack. His father chuckled before sighing. So yeah, I ended up sticking around, and we raised the girls for about 7 years. 7 years? Izuku gasped, his face contorting in pure shock. He had sisters for 7 years and didn't know. But you see, as it turns out, neither of us really wants to keep them. So, yeah, we need to get rid of them. His father said casually, as if he was getting rid of a broken TV, I was gonna give them over to an orphanage, but that's a whole process. But then I remembered, wait a minute, I have a son who takes care of children for a living. Why not just give them to him? There were very few people that Izuku genuinely hated. But his father was definitely on that list. Right under Overhaul and whoever was leading the MLA. So what do you say? They're not super dangerous or anything, but they are your sisters. His father asked. You say that as if family means anything to you, Izuku growled, before regaining his composure. But you already know my answer, don't you? I had a hunch, but I was worried maybe you'd become less of an overwhelming sap after everything you've been through. His father laughed. But it's nice to know you're still the same even after all this time. I guess refusing to change is the one thing you got from me. I've changed plenty, I didn't get a single thing from you. Izuku snapped. Just tell me when you want to bring them here? Give me about a week. His father estimated. All right, and bring divorce papers, I'll take care of Mom and the cost, just give me your signature, Izuku demanded. Fine, good luck with your mother, you're gonna need it. His father said before ending the call. So you have sisters? Chol summarized Izuku's story. 3 of them. Izuku sighed, rubbing his temples. And I'm gonna have to see my father again to get them. It's weird to think that those girls will be aunts, huh? Chol mused. I don't even want to think about it. Izuku groaned. And not to mention those girls have been raised by that man up till now. Ugh. Well, look on the bright side, they're only 7. You've got plenty of time to get whatever your father put in their heads out. Yeah, I guess. Izuku sighed. When are things going to be simpler? Simpler? Probably never, given how you are. Chol said honestly. Easier? Eventually. Whenever you start something, it's going to be hard. Especially when it's a business. But if you do everything right and get just enough luck, it'll be smooth sailing for the most part, granted life doesn't decide to throw a curveball that destroys your entire life. Izuku let out an even deeper sigh. Putting that aside, I'm going to need to tell the kids. Particularly the ones who think of me as their father, and I'm going to have to tell Mom. Chol cringed internally and was thankful that the most family drama she had to deal with was when her sister did something particularly stupid, that and the whole government tried to steal her daughter thing. Well, better get this over with. Izuku pulled out his phone. I'm going to go outside. Izuku could feel his heart pounding and sweat going down his palm as he held up his phone to his ear. This was going to hurt. A lot. Probably not the most painful or stressful experience he'd had in his life or in the past year, but that didn't make it any easier. Hello? Izuku? Is everything all right? His mother asked as she picked up the phone. You didn't collapse again, did you? Are you eating okay? Are the kids all right? You're making sure to take breaks, right? I'm fine, Mom, it's just, are you sitting down? Izuku asked. Izuku, what's going on? Inko asked cautiously, and he could hear her holding her breath. Izuku took a deep breath and decided to just rip off the band-aid. Dad had more kids with another woman, and he's handing them off to me. And after that, silence. For minutes on minutes, nothing but silence. Silence and thick tension. After what felt like an eternity, his mother spoke again. I'm sorry, Izuku, I think I need some time to myself. That's okay. Just call me when you're ready. Izuku asked her. I love you. I love you too, baby. Bye. And with that, Inko hung up. Izuku let out the breath he'd been holding and slouched. At least he didn't have to hear her cry, although he knew she'd be doing that soon enough. He looked down at his phone and sighed. I didn't even talk to her about the divorce papers, nothing I can do about it now. I just need to hope she takes this well. In the city, a small green car is driving through the city with 4 particular people inside it. The driver was one Hisashi Midoriya, a large man with a green dragon head but an otherwise normal body. He had on a pair of dirty tattered jeans and a dirty tank top. In the back, his 3 daughters, all of them had green hair and a pair of green dog ears and were wearing the same black shirt and skirt combo with red shoes. Despite them mainly looking the same, one could tell the difference between them by their expressions. The one all the way to the left was currently scowling and seemingly trying to stare Hisashi to death. This was Yaba. Next to her was a girl with a rather bored expression, looking down reading a book. She also had the only real physical differentiator, that being the snake coming out of her behind like a tail, which was currently wrapped around her waist. This was G. And the last one was looking down at her legs with a somber expression, sniffling slightly. This was Inu. The car ride had been silent for hours, as everyone knew what was happening there. The girls were being left by their parents. They'd been told that they were being given away some time ago, and each of them had reacted in their own unique way. But even after packing their stuff, they didn't have a lot, they still didn't know one thing. Can you at least tell us where we're going, you fucking bastard? Yaba spat at her father. It should be pretty obvious, sis, we're going to an orphanage. G scoffed, not looking up from her book. Actually, not quite, Hisashi said, still looking at the road, while the 3 girls looked at him curiously. I decided to throw you girls a bone and send you to live with your brother. Our what? All 3 girls shouted in shock. We have a brother? Inu asked, her eyes wide like dinner plates. What the hell? Where the fuck has he been? Yaba shouted. I am curious about why we've never heard of him before, G asked thoughtfully. Well, I never really had any reason to bring him up. Hisashi shrugged. He's your half-brother I had with my first wife. Technically only wife, but that's whatever. And he's done rather well for himself. Unfortunately, he hates me, so I can't really ask him for a lot of favors. But he's also a bit of a sap, so I was able to convince him to take you 3 in. He's actually a lot like Inu. Just bigger and more of a nerd. Well, if he's like Inu, then I guess we don't need to worry, G said nonchalantly. I doubt anyone's as nice as our Inu, but if he's half as nice I guess that's good, Yaba smirked. Meanwhile, Inu just blushed intensely and looked down. Guys, stup. But anyway, I think you'll like living with him. Like I said, he's done very well for himself. Hisashi told them. Great, we might own more than 2 sets of clothes. Yaba spat. Soon after that conversation, the car went quiet once more until Hisashi arrived at a gate in front of a forest. Yaba raised an eyebrow. Hey old man, pretty sure we're not supposed to go here. Funny, considering you don't know where you're going. Hisashi countered. And trust me, we're meant to be here. And then, the gate swung open, much to the girls' surprise, and they drove in. I thought you said we were going to live with our brother? Ji asked cautiously as she looked around at the surrounding forest. You are, Kisashi answered casually. Then why the fuck are we in a forest? Yaba asked. This is your brother's property. Hisashi sighed as he was forced to explain himself. Basically, he owns this forest and everything in it. So naturally, he lives in the center of it. He owns a whole forest? The three of them shouted out in shock. Yeah, now quiet down, Hisashi told them, getting annoyed by all the questions. We're almost there. What the fuck? Yaba shouted as the car had arrived to the gates just in front of the Midoriya building and looked at the massive house in shock and awe. That's the rich for ya. Never fail to be flashy as hell. Hisashi said as the gates opened up and he drove in. All the girls were still too stunned to speak as they arrived at their destination. The car finally came to a stop around the tree, and they could all see Izuku standing on the stairs to the house, with Sai by his side. Alright, get out, Hisashi instructed. We're here. Ji nudged Inu, snapping her out of her shock. Sis, open the door.
Sorry.
Inu apologized for being slow before opening the car door. The three girls shuffled out of the car and looked up at Izuku, who approached them with a smile, making sure not to look at his father. You three must be my sisters. It's nice to finally meet you all. I'm Izuku.
Aki.
Inu gave a polite bow to her brother. And my name is Inu. Please take good care of us, big brother. Nice to meet you, brother. Ji gave a small bow to Izuku.
Emi.
I'm Yabe. What's with the weird demon robe? Yaba asked as she walked up to Izuku and started tugging at his robe to get a better look. Oh, this is just special armor to keep myself safe in case anything happens, Izuku explained, before looking up at his father, who was hurriedly pulling out the couple bags the girls had from the trunk of his car. Did you bring it? Yeah, I have the papers. Hisashi pulled an envelope from his pocket and threw it at Izuku, but Sai caught it before it got close. Good luck with your mother. Get off my property, Izuku ordered bluntly. Fine. Goodbye everyone, may we never meet again. Hisashi said as went into his car before driving away. Inu gave her father's car a sad look as it drove off. Ji didn't seem to care, and Yaba gave her father the finger as he left. Well, they seem to have pretty distinctive personalities. Izuku thought before he went over to the girls. Well, now that he's gone, I guess I should take you to your room. Now, do you want to share a room or have separate rooms?
Share.
The girls said simultaneously. I see. Guess you don't like to be separated. Izuku chuckled awkwardly. You're damn right. The Cerberus sisters stay together. Yaba said before high-fiving her two sisters. Cerberus sisters? It was then that Izuku took special notice of their ears and Ji's tail. I see. So you three have a quirk that makes you like the famous three-headed dog. Uh-huh. Our quirk is called Cerberus. It gives us super strength, speed, and fire breath, and we can't die. Yaba boasted. The closer we get to each other, the stronger our powers are, Ji explained. But if we get too far apart, our quirk will be useless, Inu admitted shyly. I see. That's a really cool quirk. And unique too. Izuku's eyes lit up. He always loved hearing about new and interesting quirks. The girls seemed to like hearing that. Yaba confidently smiled, Ji gave a sly smirk, and Inu gave a small smile. But how good are you at controlling your fire breath? Izuku asked them. Do you think you need one of our fireproof rooms? Yes, please. Inu nodded. Why do you have fireproof rooms? Yaba asked curiously. By the way, what kind of place is this? Ji asked, looking past him at the house before looking at Sai. And who's this? My name is Saibura. Sai introduced herself with a bow. I am the head guard of the Midoriya Foundation. The Midoriya Foundation? Ji gave her brother a curious look. Right, I'm guessing that man didn't tell you a lot about me, so you must be confused, Izuku said. I'll explain everything as we walk to your room. Sai, could you get their bags? The five of them walked through the halls, with Sai in the back carrying all their bags on one long sword. So the Midoriya Foundation is, for the most part, a childcare facility. Specifically, we care for OPC. Izuku started. What's an OPC? Inu asked, tilting her head in an adorable manner. It stands for overly powerful children, Izuku explained. They're basically children whose quirks are too uncontrollable or dangerous for them to live normally among other people. So this is an orphanage for powerful kids? He summarized. Izuku shook his head. Not an orphanage. All the children here are officially adopted by me. All the girls' eyes widen once more. Wait! Yaba shouted. So that means Dash. Daddy! Suddenly, Shiruka came running down the hall. Daddy! I ran out of O. Who are they? Once again, the girls were staring wide-eyed, looking at Shiruka like she was an alien. Oh, these are my sisters. Izuku introduced. You have sisters? Now it was Shiruka's turn to be shocked, looking back at the girls with the same expression they were looking at her with. Yeah, I just learned about them now. It's a long story, but just treat them like everyone else, okay? Izuku asked her. Shiruka nodded but couldn't help but continue looking at the three girls, who continued looking at her. Shiruku, we can talk later, for now, I need to take care of these three, Izuku told her, as he grabbed one of his sister's hands and tugged them along. Don't worry, I won't take long, okay? Okowo. Shiruka nodded, before running off to go tell as many people as possible about this. With that done, the five continued trudging along, but now the girls' wide-eyed gazes were locked onto Izuku. You're a dad? All three of them asked at the same time. Izuku sighed. Yes. A lot of these kids see me as their father since I'm taking care of them, and I don't mind being their father. These kids have had it pretty rough for the most part, so if they want me to be their father, then that's just what I'll do. Wow. Inu looked up at her brother with wide adoring eyes. So how many kids do you have? Ji asked. 21, Izuku answered as he readied himself for another surprised reaction. However, at this point, the girls were getting used to it and just looked at him shocked. You have 21 kids with super dangerous and hard-to-control quirks? Ji asked. That sounds like a poor choice of job, brother. It has its downsides. But it has plenty of upsides. Izuku said, gesturing to everything around him. But it's not really about that. The point is, someone needed to help these children, and I was the only one willing to step up. So I did, and I don't regret it one bit. Inu continued to look at her brother with admiration in her eyes. So cool. Wait, how did you get so rich taking care of a bunch of kids? Yaba asked. If parenting came with a paycheck, the old man wouldn't have let us go. Well, like I said, they're not normal children. They're OPCS. Izuku explained. Because of how dangerous O.P.C.S are, the government steps in whenever they're involved. It's important to them that O.P.C.S are safe and live good lives, and as the person taking care of them, the government pays me quite a lot of money. Money which I use to help earn more money. And thus I got all this. Wow. So you're like rich? Yaba asked. Izuku chuckled at her wonder and innocence. Yes, I am. Ah, here we are. They had finally arrived at the girls' new room. Seeing as it was a shared room, it was one of the bigger rooms in the house. Izuku opened the door, the girls rushed into the room, and once again their eyes were filled with wonder. Sweet, our own TV! Yaba shouted as she ran towards the TV at the center of the room. Finally, some proper beds. Ji exclaimed as she looked at the 3 beds in the room. We have a window! Inu gasped as she ran over to it and smiled. It looks so pretty outside. Izuku and Sai stepped in, and Sai set their bags down on the ground. Thank you, Sai. Now can you please give us some space? Of course, sir. Sai bowed before taking her leave, closing the door behind her. Izuku then turned back to his sisters, who were still admiring their new room. Girls, can I speak to you for a second? The 3 turned towards him and gave each other worried looks, as Izuku's tone didn't indicate anything good. Okay. So, I did agree to take you 3 in. But that was mostly to make sure that man didn't leave you anywhere shady. Izuku explained seriously, kneeling down to talk to them face to face. But this place is not as safe as I'd like. Like I said, the kids here, while they are great kids, are dangerous, and they regularly destroy parts of the house and a lot of the forest, and they can hurt you or even kill you if you're not careful, even if you have a strong quirk. I'm also being targeted by a very powerful evil organization who's attacked this place before and even sent assassins. I'm doing everything I can to increase the security of this place. But even then, there's still a risk we'll be attacked. You 3 aren't OPCS. So you don't have to be here. You don't have to be at risk. But at the same time, you are my family, and I don't want to push you away. So I leave the choice up to you. Do you want to stay here, or go somewhere safer? I promise no matter what you choose, I'll do my absolute best to make sure you have a good life. The three of them just looked at him for a second before looking at each other and nodding. They looked back at Izuku, and Yaba crossed her arms and smirked.
Like hell, we're leaving. This place seems awesome, bro.
Thank you for your concern, brother, but the Cerberus sisters don't back down from a challenge. G smirked as well. I really don't want to leave you, big brother.
I want to stay to help.
Inu gave Izuku a determined look. Long as you keep us fed and put a roof on our heads, we'll make sure anyone coming at you is good as dead. Yaba proclaimed as she punched her palm for effect. Nice rhyming, sis, but try not to actually kill anyone. We'll be a lot less powerful if you're stuck in jail. G said with a deadpan expression. Izuku smiled down at them, feeling his heart warming just a bit. Thank you. I'll do my best to make sure you're happy. With that, Izuku stood up and made his way toward the door. Well, I've got some work to get done. Sorry, I couldn't spend more time with you, but I have to do what I have to do. But feel free to call me if you need anything. Oh, and you can decorate your room in any way you want. You're free to do whatever you like, so long as you don't hurt yourself or each other. And try to keep the cursing to a minimum. I understand if it's a habit, but please make an attempt. Make no promises, bro, Yaba replied. We understand, brother. Thank you. Ye replied. Inu rushed forward and hugged her brother. Thank you, big brother. Izuku took a breath and took a second to appreciate the wholesome cuteness of this scene before kneeling down and hugging them back. You don't need to thank me. Just doing my job. And with that, Izuku took his leave. The girls looked at each other and immediately converged. Seems like was have a pretty reliable big brother, G said. He's really cool. Inu said, her eyes sparkling. Ya can't believe we had a rich brother this whole time and that shitty old man never told us. Yaba scowled. I can't believe we're ants. G brought up with a curious expression. Just kinda weird, huh? Knock knock knock. Greetings. Kiba shouted from the other side of the door. Please allow us entry into your domain. Translation, can we come in? Fu asked alongside her. The girls looked at each other and nodded before G responded. Yeah, sure.
Slam. Welcome.
Kiba said after slamming their door open. You must be our aunts. I do hope you don't mind if we don't call you Auntie. Please don't. All three girls said simultaneously. Good. We've come to show you around and introduce you to your new home. Kiba said. You've come to do that. I've come to make sure you don't do anything stupid. Fu added. Well, thanks, Yaba said, before crossing her arms. So, what's there to do in this place? Kiba smirked. A lot. Do we really have to do this? Inu asked. Currently, the Cerberus sisters were in the training room, facing off against Kiba, who was staring them down confidently. Of course we do. I want to see just how strong those O.P.C.S are. Yaba smirked as she cracked her knuckles. I'm also curious. Brother said they were dangerous, I want to see how careful we should be. G said, her neutral expression not wavering. You don't think we'll lose, do ya, sis? Yaba asked, raising an eyebrow. It's not that, I just don't think Big Brother would want us to hurt his kids. Inu admitted. Oh? More confident than I expected. Kiba punched her palm, creating a very light shockwave effect. Alright, I want a good clean fight. Try not to kill each other. Fu said. If anyone gets too injured, the match is over.
Got it?
We accept, G said. Your terms are accepted, Kiba said, throwing her cloak to the side. Great, you can start clobbering each other now. Fu signaled. Go. As soon as Fu gave the word, Kiba rocketed toward the girls and headed right to Yaba. Yaba's eyes widened as she saw Kiba rush towards her at incredible speeds. Holy sure dash.
Slam.
Kiba shoulder tackled Yaba, hitting her right in the chest, sending her flying at the wall, so hard it caused blood to fly out of her mouth.
Cease.
Inu cried out in shock and concern, but this was a mistake as when she looked towards her sister, Kiba came running. Pow.
Slam.
Kiba punched Inu's sides, sending her flying at another wall. Egg. Inu cried out in pain as she hit the wall and slid down, spitting up blood all the while. Ji didn't have the same issue reacting, and she let out a stream of fire from her mouth aimed right at Kiba. Kiba dashed to the right, avoiding the attack as it hit the floor where she had stood. She then ran around the jet of flames and landed a mean right hook right on Ji's cheek.
Crack! Eck!
Ji cried as her neck cracked, multiple bones in her face breaking on contact with Kiba's attack as she was sent flying into the wall right next to Yaba.
Eck fuck!
Yaba cried as she pulled herself up and wiped the blood away from her mouth. Shit, she hits hard. You think?
Eck!
Ji grunted as she snapped her neck back into place and let her regeneration fix her up. Brother wasn't kidding when he said they were dangerous. I think I would have died if it wasn't for our regeneration. Now that you've tasted my power, do you yield? Kiba asked, giving them a smug look. Inu gave her a fearful look. Maybe dash.
Not a chance.
Yaba interrupted her sister, before putting her hand on Ji's shoulder, taking a deep breath, and then unleashing a massive wave of fire from her mouth. Kiba jumped out of the way of the much larger flame attack, only to be caught in another attack as Ji unleashed her own flames from her mouth.
Eck!
Kiba grunted as she was engulfed in fire. It wasn't as strong as Netsu's flames, but it still hurt like heck, and it rent her naked as her clothes were burned away. Kiba rushed through the flames at top speed and grabbed Yaba and Ji's heads before smashing them together, breaking their focus and stopping their attack. Oh. The two didn't even get a chance to recover before Kiba grabbed their hair and smashed their heads against the wall.
Slam! 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 Slam!
Kiba continued slamming the two's heads against the increasingly bloodied wall until suddenly she felt two arms wrap around her stomach.
Thud!
Inu had come up from behind and suplexed Kiba, slamming her head into the hard metal floor. Ow! Kiba winced before Inu kicked her in the face, sending her rolling across the room. Ow! 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 Ow!
Slam!
Ow! Kiba groaned as she smacked face first into the opposite wall. Are you two okay? Inu asked her sisters as she pulled their flattened faces off the bloody wall.
This was a mistake.
Ji answered as she and Yaba quickly started regenerating. Is that you throwing in the towel? Fu asked from the sidelines.
Not a chance.
Yaba growled before she turned around and unleashed another fire breath attack at Kiba, who was back on her feet. Kiba rolled out of the way, barely dodging the attack in time, before rushing towards the three girls. She was about to strike Yaba in the side of her face, but Ji came between them just in time and caught the punch in both hands.
Slam! Gah!
Ji grunted as she planted her feet down on the ground as much as she could, but Kiba's strength was overwhelming her and pushing her back, even though she was only using one arm. Kiba raised her other arm ready to strike Ji, but Yaba leapt forward and grabbed that arm, pulling it in the opposite direction.
Gah!
Erg! Yaba struggled to hold Kiba's fist back. I can't do this for long. Just as Kiba was about to wrench her arm free, Ji unwrapped her tail from her waist and used its snake head to bite Kiba's leg. Ow! Kiba grunted before glaring at Ji. If that's how you want to play it. Kiba then grabbed hold of both girls and raised them into the air before spinning around as fast as she could. Ugh! Ji groaned as she tried not to get sick from spinning so fast.
Gonna hurl.
Yaba shut her mouth as she tried to fight down the urge to vomit.
Begone!
Kiba shouted as she let go, launching both girls to opposite sides of the room. Bunk! The two girls slammed into the metal walls once more, before falling to the ground, dizzy and sick to their stomachs.
Heh!
Whoa! Kiba grabbed her head. She wasn't immune to motion sickness either, and after coming to a sudden stop, now it was her turn to hold down her lunch.
Fush!
And then immediately she was bathed in flame from Inu's fire breath. Ow! 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 Owa! Kiba hissed as the flames assaulted her once more. Kiba rushed towards Inu and tackled her, squishing her against a wall so hard it caused blood to fly out of her mouth. Eh! Inu cried out in pain as she crumbled to the floor. Huh! Huh! Egg! Kiba grunted as she wiped off sweat that was dripping from every pore in her body before falling to one knee. Meanwhile, Fu looked over the room at all four of the girls. Ji and Yaba were both struggling to get up and not throw up thanks to the extreme dizziness. Inu was still on the floor, while her wounds had healed. The pain was still there. And Kiba was covered in small burn marks, sweating like there was no tomorrow, and definitely overheated.
Alright, that's it, Fu called. That battle's over. What? No, I can still, oh, waff.
Yaba couldn't finish her objection, as suddenly she started vomiting all over the floor.
Yeah, we're done.
Yigranet. I don't want to fight anymore. Inu cried. Normally I wouldn't give up so fast. Kiba panted. But I'll make an exception for you. Fu sent out some of Kyosiai's tendrils and grabbed the Cerberus sisters, but not Kiba, as her body was simply too hot.
Alright Kiba, let's head to the new nurse.
Fush! Yaba, Ji, and Inu all stared with wide eyes as Vera hit Kiba with a flamethrower in the middle of the med bay. This continued for a couple of minutes until eventually Vera let her finger off the trigger and Kiba was revealed from under the flames, now completely free of burns and 100% refreshed.
So cool.
Kiba felt like she'd been smothered in snow in the best possible way.
What the fuck?
Yaba just said, too stupefied to say anything else. Little girls should not be cursing. Vera lightly scolded as she set her flamethrower in her trunk before taking out a jackhammer. Now let's heal her head and back. Yeah, her quirk basically makes it so she can make her actions do the reverse of what they're supposed to, Fu explained. So she can heal you with weapons and stuff. Interesting, Ji said, taking a close look as Vera started hammering away at Kiba's body. Grrrr. Oh. All three sisters groaned as their stomachs rumbled something fierce. Need food. Now. Yaba groaned as she clutched her stomach. We had to regenerate so much, we used up so much energy, Ji explained while she also clutched her stomach. Guess I'll take you guys to eat while Kiba's doing this. Fu mused before looking at the clock. Dad should be making food already, so let's just head down. Follow me. Izuku looked down at his three sisters eating their hambago steak and fries, noting how all three of them ate completely differently. Yaba ate similarly to how Yami ate when he first arrived, in the way one would expect a caveman to eat. Violently tearing apart her food with her teeth and hands, not bothering to use her utensils at all. Ji was a bit more civilized in that she actually used her utensils, but didn't seem to care about any form of etiquette. She would cut her food into huge chunks that would just barely fit in her mouth, before shoving it in there and chewing. Lastly, Inu ate like someone would expect a person to eat, cutting her food into small chunks before eating it. But despite being so different, they did share some similarities. Two in particular. 1, they all had a look of pure bliss on their face, and 2, they were all eating as fast as possible. Good, Yaba said through the food in her mouth, as a single tear went down her cheek. Yimwanet. Big brother, this is amazing. Inu shouted before immediately getting back to eating. Izuku smiled, it was always nice to hear someone enjoy his cooking. I'm glad you like it. It's not much, but it's probably miles better than whatever cheap stuff that man fed you. Yow damn right, Yaba said with a full mouth. Please don't speak with your mouth full. Izuku sighed before pulling out a napkin and whipping Yaba and Ji's mouths. And try not to get too much food on the floor. We don't have a janitor yet. Inu stopped before giving Izuku a confused look. Then who's cleaning the training room? Izuku winced. Normally, whoever makes the mess cleans it up, but there's been a change in plan due to special circumstances. Ugh. Why am I stuck cleaning this mess? Sori thought as she pulled bits of flesh off the training room wall and put them into a bag. Because I have to do this as part of my community service, and father isn't cruel enough to make me do this alone. Yonda told her as she furiously scrubbed the blood off another wall. And since you're an adult who most of the time isn't doing anything, it's only natural that father would ask you to do this. That's not fair. Sori pouted. Just because you got punished, I get punished. You're an employee, this isn't a punishment, this is your job. Yonda deadpanned. Now less complaining and more working. I have to clean Esper's litter box after this, and that's somehow worse than this. Oh yeah, litter box, I used one of those once. Sori reminisced. Did not end well. Yonda paused for a second as the image of that forced its way into her mind, making her shiver in disgust. She then looked over to the Blee with a looking of longingly. If only I could use this to clean my brain. Meanwhile, back in the cafeteria, the three girls were eating alongside their brother and looking around at all the kids who were eating there as well. Man bro, you really do have a crap ton of kids, Yada said as she popped a fry into her mouth. Yeah, and I'm just going to keep getting more and more, Izuku said proudly. It's a hard job, but it's worth it for all this. Izuku looked over all the children gathered. Eating, talking, laughing. Enjoying life. This was why he loved his job. Very impressive, brother, Ji said as she continued eating. By the way, what is your quirk? Izuku went stiff. Yeah, you never told us, bro? Yada inquired casually. Is it something like your mom's or like that bastard? Izuku sighed and took a deep breath. It's neither. I'm quirkless. Yada's and Inu's eyes went wide while Ji looked mildly surprised. That's... Yada didn't really know what to say here. She'd never met a quirkless person before, and it was just so weird to think of someone not having a quirk. Izuku's expression sunk. I understand if you're disappointed. We're not disappointed. Inu shouted quickly, seeing her brother's mood drop. She wanted to ease his mind as much as she could. We were just surprised. Yeah, you're still cool, bro. Quirks aren't everything. Yada reassured him. You're rich, you're nice, you can cook, who cares if you don't have a quirk? I honestly don't really care. Yi shrugged. Izuku gave them a relieved smile. I'm glad you think so. Some people don't really like the quirkless all that much. Well, bro, we told ya if anyone has an issue with you, they can take it up with us, Yaba told him confidently. It doesn't matter if you have a quirk when you have 3 badass sisters. Izuku laughed. I guess so. Thanks, I feel much better. It was bright and early at the Midoriya Foundation, and they had a special guest hanging around in Izuku's office. Man, I can't believe your dad is such a scumbag, Achiko said as she drank her tea and sat back on Izuku's couch. Izuku had finished explaining everything that had happened recently at the Foundation. After hearing about the debacle with Izuku's father and his sister, she was even more grateful that she had such a loving and caring family. I'm really sorry you had to deal with that. Just another terrible thing that happened to you that you didn't deserve. Izuku sighed. I'm just happy I don't have to deal with him anymore and that I got the girls out of the house. Well, you're an infinitely better father than he is, so you don't have anything to worry about there. Achiko smiled at him. Thanks, although I doubt that's hard. Izuku chuckled before taking a sip of his tea. Now, what did you come all the way here for? Oh well, I was kinda hoping you'd let me spar with the kids. Achiko asked sheepishly. Somewhat embarrassed to be asking something of her friend again. The sports festival will be coming up soon, and I want to get used to fighting against all different kinds of quirks. So I really couldn't think of any better place than this. Izuku smiled. That's actually a good idea. And I'm sure the kids would love to spar with you again. Just try not to go overboard and challenge them all at once again. Achiko laughed nervously. Yeah, not making that mistake again. I think I'll just take them one by one. That's how the finals of the sports festival are anyway. Right, and actually I have an idea to help make the training even more accurate, Izuku said as his eyes lit up with excitement. All right. That's it, boss? Sori said as she finished drawing a thick line in the dirt. Izuku, Fu, Kiba, Sanson, Kai, Ken, Nara, Yaba, Ji, Inu, Vera, and Sori had all gathered outside at a large clearing in the forest. Sori had just dug a large square in the dirt, making an area inside the square about as big as the arena used in the sports festival, which of course Izuku knew the exact proportions of, with Achiko standing on the left side. All right, listen up everyone. Izuku said, addressing the kids. I know all of you are excited to spar with Achiko, but we're going to do it in an orderly fashion. Understood? Yes. All the kids responded. Good. Izuku smiled proudly. Now, the rules are simple. Once you get in there, the battle will start when I signal it. If you're unable to move or throw out of bounds, then you lose. Got it? Got it. The kids responded. All right, we'll go by the order in which you guys came to the Foundation, Izuku said, getting disappointed looks from his sisters and Ken, but very eager looks from Fu and Kiba. Kiba, you can go first. Yes. Kiba did a small fist bump. Thank you, caretaker. This battle will be swift. I bet it will be. Achiko gave Kiba a determined glare as the younger girl entered the arena. She had a plan on that while simple on paper, was harder in execution. Kiba walked to the other side of the arena and got into a battle stance. I'm ready to win caretaker. Achiko activated full cowling at 28% and got ready to fight. Me too. Who do you think's gonna win? Ken asked the kids around him. It could go either way, G answered, not looking away from the arena for even a second. On one hand, I don't know much about this Uraraka girl, but having a zero-gravity quirk is very good for throwing people around. But on the other hand, Kiba's strength and speed are overwhelming. If she's not careful, Kiba may simply knock her out of the arena with one strong blow. My money's on Kiba. Ya babet. If she can fight me and my sisters on equal grounds, no way she can lose easily. Yeah, but this is a very different kind of fight, one touch and Kiba's powerless, Nara noted. And she can even make herself heavier so it's harder for her to get knocked back, Fu added. I think she's got this. I just hope no one gets too hurt, Inu said. It'll be fine, Vera's here. Kai said, smiling down at Inu. We'll be okay? Alright. Let the battle begin. Izuka signaled. Boom. Immediately Kiba rushed towards Achiko at max speed. One punch. I'll put everything I have into one attack and knock her out in an instant. Kiba was heading towards Achiko at a simply stupefying speed. Even someone as quick as Achiko would barely be able to react to such swiftness, and at best she'd be able to dodge. But fortunately for her, she didn't need to react to Kiba. Not when she'd fought the girl multiple times now, and she was still so predictable. At the same time Kiba started running at her, Achiko rushed forward and touched her arm, taking away her own gravity. Then in less than a second, the battle was over. Kiba leapt at Achiko, with her fist in front of her, in an attempt to hit her in the stomach and knock her out of the arena. But Achiko leapt over her, barely making it in time, allowing Kiba to sail underneath her, but not before Achiko touched Kiba's back, taking away her gravity and pushing her even faster. Now weightless and moving at top speed, Kiba had been shot out of the arena, before she even knew what was happening. Release! Achiko touched her fingertips together and deactivated her zero-gravity. Both girls fell to the floor and slid face-first across the dirt, although Kiba slid far faster and further, until eventually coming to a stop. And Achiko is the winner. Izuka shouted, before immediately running over to Kiba. Kiba, are you okay? Physically, yes, Kiba answered, not pulling her face out of the dirt due to her embarrassment. It's alright Kiba, it was actually a lot closer than you think, Izuka reassured her while patting her back. If Achiko had been just a little bit slower, then she would have been knocked clean out of the arena. Yeah, I was almost sure I wasn't gonna make it, Achiko said as she dusted herself off. Humph. Kiba pouted, still face down in the dirt. Alright. Izuka picked Kiba up and held her close to his chest, comforting her as he walked back to the arena. Let's get on to the next match. Fu nodded and got into the arena while Achiko walked back to her side. After half a minute, they were ready to start. Achiko looked over at Fu nervously. Out of all her opponents, Fu was likely going to be her most difficult one to face, as his powers were the best suited for this kind of fight. But she had a plan. Begin. Izuka signaled. Shum. Immediately Achiko powered up to 30% full cowling and rushed at Fu as fast as she could. Fu didn't have enough time to react to Achiko's improved speed, so he just braced for impact and used Kyosei's tendrils to make black roots come out of his feet so Achiko couldn't push him out. But that wasn't Achiko's plan. Instead, Achiko leapt onto Fu and pinned him to the ground before touching herself and increasing her weight, then lastly she touched the ground, increasing its weight as well. Oh. That was her plan. Fu thought as he realized he was now stuck underneath Achiko. He tried to move, but it was no use. He tried to use Kyosei's tendrils to move Achiko off him or move himself around. No use. She was simply too heavy. Then he tried to use Kyosei to dig into the ground and escape from there, but Achiko had already thought of that. By increasing the weight of the dirt, it became much more compact, making it far tougher to dig through. Guess I have no choice. Fu thought. Using Kyosei, Fu detached his finger and rolled it under Achiko. His plan was to distract Achiko with his now dead body and regrow himself from his finger, where he would then be free. But Achiko had an eye for detail, and she was well aware of Fu's mobile shell technique, so the moment she heard the sound of flesh being cut, she looked down to the source and saw Fu's finger rolling away. Realizing what was about to happen, she immediately got off Fu and grabbed the finger as it started to regenerate, before throwing it out of the arena. The finger landed outside the ring as it continued to regenerate.
Fu is out of the ring. Achiko is the winner.
Izuku called. Damn, she is not fucking around, Yaba swore. These matches don't even last 2 minutes. Ken whistled. Meanwhile, while Fu's body continued to regenerate, Kyosei crawled out of Fu's former body and over to his brand new one. Vera, could you deal with Fu? Izuku instructed.
Yes, sir.
Vera ran towards Fu's old body, grabbed it, and then went over and grabbed Fu's work-in-progress body and took them off to the side. Alright, now Sanson, it's your turn, Izuku called.
Yeah.
Sanson cheered as she rushed over to the arena, pumped to get to fight someone again. The two got into position and got ready to throw down.
Ok. Begin.
Izuku signaled. Sanson rushed over to Achiko, and Achiko in response crouched onto the ground and touched it, making the ground around her weightless, before touching herself and making herself weightless. When Sanson got close to Achiko, she made her body into a giant hammer, raised it up, and then dropped it down. Achiko leapt over Sanson, getting high into the air, before making herself heavier and increasing the power to 30%.
Starfall impact. Crash.
Uraraka slammed into the ground fast and hard, so hard it created a powerful gust of wind and caused the ground to break and fracture. Sanson was pushed back by the wind and shockwave, unable to do anything as the broken piece of land she was standing on was jostled loose and floated into the air. Before Sanson could get her bearings, Achiko rushed forward and pushed the piece of ground Sanson was floating on and pushed it away, quickly causing it to leave the arena, taking Sanson with it.
Sanson is out of bounds, Achiko is the winner.
Izuku called.
Release.
Achiko touched her fingertips together and deactivated her quirk. The piece of land Sanson was standing on fell to the ground and Achiko's gravity returned to normal. Even Sanson didn't last long, Kiba muttered, looking at Achiko with amazement. She was starting to not feel as bad about being taken out so quickly because everyone else was following suit. Alright, Kai, your turn, Izuku called for the largest of the kids to take to the arena.
Ok.
Kai walked over to the ring, making sure not to step on anyone on the way. This girl's tough, but the hell is she gonna push this guy out of the ring? Yaba asked. I don't think she has to. Fu had now come back, having his clothes put on his new body and his old body having been taken away. Now Kai and Achiko were in position and ready to smack down. Alright.
Let the battle begin.
Izuku signaled. Kai raised up his leg and got ready to stomp the ground as hard as he could. Achiko saw this and in response touched her arm, making herself heavier.
Stomp.
Kai smashed his foot into the ground, causing the already fractured ground to fracture even more. A massive wind and shockwave blew throughout the area, causing everyone to fall onto their butts. Everyone except Achiko, who was too heavy to move, just stayed in place. Once the shockwave and wind subsided, Kai looked down through the dirt and dust and saw that Achiko hadn't moved an inch. Release. Achiko returned her gravity to normal and just in time as Kai went on the offensive once more, rushing his middle head towards her with his jaw open, intent on grabbing her with his mouth. Achiko took a deep breath and rushed forward. She knew what she had to do. As Kai's head came barreling towards her, Achiko vaulted over it. She turned off full cowling and focused 100% on One for All in her finger pads. 30% of One for All's power still wouldn't be enough to make her quirk work completely on someone as big and heavy as Kai. But she couldn't use 100% full cowling. Her solution, focus One for All in one part of her body like she'd been doing before, specifically her finger pads. This would allow her to get the full boost of power to her quirk without destroying her body. Achiko touched Kai's head end.
Slam.
Kai immediately felt the effects. His massive body was suddenly subjected to a harsh increase in gravity, causing him to fall to the ground hard.
Eh.
Everyone shouted as the wind and shockwave created by this impact was even greater than Kai's stomp. Everyone was blown back, trees swayed and were almost uprooted, dirt and dust flew around forming massive clouds. After a minute, the impact lessened and things started to settle down. Izuku coughed and tried to wave the dust cloud out of his face. Maybe this was a bad idea. Eventually, the dust and dirt died down and everything became visible. All the kids, as well as Vera and Sori, were getting off the floor, covered in dirt and dust. Achiko had been sent flying out of the arena and into a tree, and lastly, the arena had been turned into a giant hole, with Kai at the bottom, pinned by gravity. BW release. Bwaff! Achiko barely managed to turn off her quirk in time, before vomiting half her stomach acids onto the tree. After all, while enhancing her quirk with one for all didn't destroy her body, it did enhance her quirk's drawbacks. Meaning that using it while it was fully enhanced felt like the world was spinning while All Might punched her in the head and stomach at the same time. For a while there was silence as no one knew exactly what to say after that. But Izuku spent that time putting together his thoughts and regaining his composure before he spoke up. Alright. Since Kai is still technically in the arena, we'll call him the winner. For now let's put this on pause, take a break, recuperate, eat, and then find a new area to fight in. Okay? Okay, aye. Everyone groaned in agreement. After a couple of hours, everyone had gotten into a new clearing and Sori drew a new arena. Alright, with this we can start the next few fights now, Izuku said as everyone settled down and got ready to watch some fights. Except for Achiko, who was standing in the arena ready to fight. Ken, it's your turn. Hope you don't mind Nara. It's fine. Let's see how long he lasts. Nara snickered, crossing her arms and giving her brother a smug look. Ken stuck his tongue out at his sister before making his way over to the arena. He tried to look as confident as possible, but in all honesty, he was pretty nervous. Achiko had beaten Kiba, Fu, and Sanson in record time, and the only reason she hadn't beaten Kai was because of a slight error she made, leading her to getting blown away. But he was not Kai, nor could he turn into anything remotely as big and heavy as Kai. Not to mention most of his forms would be utterly useless in a battle like this. He only had one form that he could rely on here. Ken made it to his side of the arena and quickly selected his form. In a flash of green light, Ken had turned Blitzwolfer. Alright, are both of you ready? Izuku asked, getting a nod from both of them.
Ok. Begin.
Immediately, both of them went into action. Achiko rushed forward while touching her arm, making herself heavier, while Ken opened up his maw and unleashed a massive howl. Awoo! A massive sound wave launched across the arena, covering it completely and engulfing Achiko in its reach.
Eck!
Achiko grunted in pain as Ken's sound waves overtook her. Thanks to her increased weight, she wasn't pushed back, but she was struggling to move forward, both because of her increased gravity and because Ken's sound wave was pushed against her. She felt like her ears were about to explode into a fountain of blood, and a painful ringing sound resonated inside her head. At this rate she'd go deaf. Achiko gritted her teeth and raised her leg as high as she could before slamming it down with all her might.
Slam!
The ground shook like a small earthquake had hit it, and dust and dirt went flying everywhere, covering the arena completely. The dust and dirt flew into Ken's eyes and mouth, forcing him to stop his attack and try to spit out the stuff. Ack! Release. Achiko returned her weight to normal and charged forward, boosting up to 30%. Smash! Achiko jet her palm forward into Ken's torso, taking away his gravity and knocking him away in one fell swoop. Ken flew out of the arena before he could even register what happened and was slammed through a tree before being stopped by the tree behind that one. Release. Achiko returned Ken's weight to normal, letting him fall to the forest floor. Ken, are you okay? Izuku asked as Vera ran over to check up on him. Ow. Ken groaned. He'll be fine. He's taken worse. Nara told them nonchalantly. He will be fine in a moment, Vera said as she wielded her sledgehammer. Alright, well then Achiko wins. Izuku called. You okay to keep going? I'm good. Let's get on to the next round. Achiko said eagerly. Okay. Nara, your turn, Izuku called. Alright, fun's over. Nara took a deep breath. She had fun mocking her brother for the ass beating he got, but now it was her turn. She walked over to her side of the arena, and the two of them got in position to fight. In a flash of pink, Nara transformed into Diamond Head. Ok. Begin. Izuku signaled. The moment the fight started, Nara unleashed a siege of crystal, popping out of the ground towards Achiko, before immediately making a crystal platform under herself, lifting her a couple dozen feet into the air. Achiko jumped to the side to avoid the barrage of crystals coming up from the ground, before immediately running towards Nara, who shot down small crystals from her arm. Uraraka dodged and weaved around the rain of crystals. However, there was an issue. If she jumped up to Nara, she would be an open target, meaning that getting up to her would be difficult. Fortunately, she didn't need to get up to her. Achiko ran up to the bottom of the pillar and touched it. Shing! Suddenly, the pillar started sinking into the ground, as its increased gravity force caused it to bore into the ground. Seeing her footing disappear, Nara knew she needed to get out of there fast. She made part of her crystal rocket up under her, sending her flying into the air, where she did a mid-air flip and shot down more crystals at Achiko to keep her away. Achiko dodged the crystals, running over to the left, while slowly trying to make her way toward Nara's location. Nara hit the ground and rolled onto her feet, before unleashing another wave of crystals toward her out of the ground. Achiko jumped forward and leapt on top of one of the crystals, before leaping from crystal to crystal. Nara didn't have time to move, and as Achiko leapt at her with her fist raised, all she could do was raise her arm and form it into a shield. Crack! Achiko's fist smashed into Nara's arm shield, causing it to crack like a nut, and Nara slid back a few feet. Uraraka flipped back, landing a few feet away from Nara, before charging back at her and touching her stomach, removing her gravity. Nara realized what was happening and quickly reacted. She made spikes pop out from all over her body, stabbing Achiko's hand and causing her to jump back, while at the same time she made spikes come out of her feet to try and anchor herself in the ground. The crystal girl then shot more crystals at Achiko, but she ducked under the fire of crystals, ran at Nara, then uppercut her into the sky. The girl's feet spikes doing nothing against Achiko's strength. Before Nara could try to do anything against her, Achiko leapt into the air and grabbed Nara by the leg, before spinning her around, and then throwing her back towards the ground, out of the arena. Slam! Nara hit the ground outside of the arena, and slid through the dirt for a couple of feet, before coming to a stop. Ack! Nara grunted in pain and defeat. Nara is out of bounds. Achiko is the winner, Izuku announced. I think she did the best out of anyone so far. Aside from Kai. Fu noted. Alright, the next battle will be a 3-on-1. Girls. Izuku motioned toward his sisters. The girls all took their position. Yaba still looked mostly confident, but the other two, not as much. Inu in particular looked almost scared of Achiko but tried her best not to show it, to little success. Is everyone ready? Izuku asked, getting nods from all the girls. Okay. Begin. Fush! The sisters joined hands and unleashed a massive torrent of fire toward Achiko, covering the entire width of the arena. As the flames traveled towards her, Achiko powered up to 30%, increased her gravity, and raised her leg. Meteor hammer! Achiko shouted as she slammed her leg into the ground, kicking up a massive wave of dirt, wind, and force, as well as covering the surrounding area in a dirt cloud. The wave hit the sisters' stream of fire and pushed against it, even pushing it back for a second, but the sisters managed to breathe out enough fire to overpower the wave and push all the way to the other side of the arena. Once the arena was completely covered in fire, the girls continued for a few seconds before halting their attack. Thinking they'd gotten Achiko with their attack. Had enough? Yaba shouted cockily into the cloud of dirt. I hope we didn't burn her too much. Inu worried. Ji squinted into the cloud. Something's wrong. If she got hit, then shouldn't she have screamed? Or made some kind of noise? And then suddenly, the ground started to shake underneath Ji. Achiko burst out of the ground, grabbing Ji as they both rose into the air. Uraraka threw Ji down, out of the arena, eliminating her. Shit! Yada swore, before she and her sister launched another stream of flames at Achiko while she was in the air, but before it could hit her, Achiko increased her weight, causing her to fall much faster and making the two's attacks miss. Slam! Achiko hit the ground so hard, it caused a small earthquake which knocked the sisters off balance. Release! Achiko returned her gravity to normal and then rushed at Yada, quickly removing her gravity and chucking her away, out of the arena. As Inu watched her sister get eliminated, she knew the situation was dire. And so there was only one course of action. I surrender! Inu shouted, raising up her arms to signify defeat. With that, Achiko is the winner! Izuku called. Phew! Achiko immediately fell and laid on her back. Relieved that the fights were finally over. That was amazing, Ms. Achiko! Kai praised her. You almost beat everyone super quickly. You've definitely improved quite a bit, Ikiba added, having gotten over her loss by now after seeing how everyone else fared. Yeah, it's rather incredible how fast you've improved, Fu noted. You could probably even beat that Yakuza guy by yourself now. Yeah, I bet. Achiko chuckled, taking in all the praise, before going into deep thought. Could I beat that guy? Maybe, if I could get to one of his blind spots in time. It would have to depend on the terrain. Still, I've definitely gotten stronger. But I still lost to Kai because of carelessness. Maybe I could have. Before Achiko's train of thought could continue, someone came in and caused it to crash. Well kid, looks like you're one tough cookie, Sori smirked, crossing her arms and giving her a dangerous look. After our nurse heals you up, how about you and I go around?
Huh?
Achiko scoffed. Sori wasn't like the kids. She wasn't a bundle of unrefined pure power. Sori was a very thoroughly trained, powerful grown woman, whose power and skill matched high-level pro heroes. Achiko had little to no chance of actually beating her, but shouldn't she still try? So, what do you say? Sori asked. No pain, no gain. You're on, Achiko said, getting fired up. After taking some time to recover and being healed up by Vera, Achiko was ready to fight again. She and Sori stood in the arena in battle stances, ready to get things started. All right. Both contestants are ready to fight. Remember, Sori, you're not allowed to use your claws. Izuku reminded his employee.
Begin.
The two of them ran forward at each other. Achiko increased her gravity and shifted to 30% full cowling. Sori reached Achiko and put all her momentum into a single kick to the younger girl's stomach.
Eck!
Achiko grunted as she slid back a few inches. Due to her increased gravity, she didn't go back very far, but this also had another consequence. When she tried to grab Sori's leg, Sori was able to jump back and dodge her grab.
Heh.
You may be harder to knock out of the arena, but you're also slow as heck. Sori explained before rushing Achiko with a flurry of blows.
Oh.
Achiko hissed in pain as Sori's blows landed, and she put up her arms to protect herself. They stung like hell, and there were just so many of them, her arms were starting to get numb. Achiko lunged forward through Sori's blows, her leg hitting the ground hard as she stomped and tried to grab her, but Sori just jumped back and dodged it with ease. Uraraka stomped towards her, each footstep causing the ground to shake and crack. Of course, no matter what she did, she could never actually get close to the quick and agile Sori, who danced around her with ease, getting in a good few blows every now and then. After a few minutes, Sori was left disappointed. Achiko had proved to be nothing more than an extremely durable punching bag. She was covered in bruises and scratches and breathing heavily as she stood in the center of the arena. Sori, on the other hand, was untouched. Gotta say, kid, I expected more. As you should, Achiko smirked before raising her leg up. Because the battle isn't over yet. Sori looked at her curiously. Is she gonna make another dust cloud? Even if I can't use my eyes, I still have my ears. Meteor hammer. Achiko shouted as she slammed her leg into the ground. But this time, the dust and dirt didn't rise up, because Achiko had increased the weight of the ground. So instead of rising up, the ground started going down. While Achiko was underground during her fight with the Cerberus sister, she figured out the ground they were fighting on was on top of a cave, with only a few yards of dirt on top of it. So naturally, once she increased the gravity of the ground, and after her extremely heavy body lumbered around smashing the ground down, all it needed was one big impact and crack! The ground started to crack and sink, collapsing underneath the two of them.
Shit!
Sori realized what was going on and leapt into the air as the ground sunk down below her. Release! Achiko knew she had to move fast, she wouldn't get this opportunity twice. She leapt into the air, in the trajectory Sori was heading towards, and grabbed her in midair. Achiko went to touch her, and Sori punched her in the face to try and stop her, but Achiko endured and touched her, increasing her gravity.
Slam!
Sori and Achiko smashed into the ground, Achiko riding the now heavier Sori as they plummeted into the cave floor. Eck! Both girls groaned in pain as Achiko fell off her and laid her back onto the cool cave floor before vomiting up blood. Using 30% of one for all had taken its toll, and damn did it hurt like hell. Meanwhile, Sori had just been smashed 2 stories down into a hard cave floor with increased gravity and still felt that gravity pushing down on her. In other words, neither of them was in great condition. Izuku looked down the hole to see if they were both okay and if they could keep going. Achiko! Sori! Can either one of you still move? Sori tried to force herself up but to no avail. The weight was far too much for her. She was pinned. Achiko, meanwhile, was not doing much better. Her body was wrecked from using her quirks for so long, and there was no way she'd be able to pull herself up on her own. But there was still one thing she could do. Achiko closed her palm and took away her own weight. She could feel her stomach and her head revolting against this decision, but despite this she nudged herself up, her weightless body floating up onto her feet. I can still stand up. should I count that? She can still technically move. I guess it counts. Izuku decided. Sori is unable to move. Achiko is the winner. Well, damn kid, I can't believe you actually got me. Sori chuckled as she and Achiko got patched up in the medwing. And by patched up, that meant Vera was hitting them with a sledgehammer. Neither can I honestly. I didn't think that plan would work, Achiko admitted. Although, I don't think I would be able to beat you under most circumstances. Oh, definitely not, but it was still impressive. Sori praised her. When you get stronger again, let's have another bout. I could definitely use the training. Achiko smiled. I'll take you up on that if Izuku lets me, of course. I don't see why I wouldn't, Izuku said, watching them over on the side. The kids got real fired up after today. You showed them just how much they have to improve to keep up. Well, they just need to keep up what they're doing and they'll. Achiko stopped. She wanted to say they would catch up to her, but she had one for all, so. Izuku understood this just from the look on her face and winced slightly before changing the topic. Anyway, Achiko, do you want to stay for dinner? Sure. I'll probably need to rest up a bit before I can go back home anyway. Achiko said. Vera could heal wounds, sure, but she couldn't treat exhaustion. Great. I'll get started on it now. Izuku said as he took his leave. Just try to relax for now. Don't want to hurt your body by overdoing. I don't want to hear that coming from you. Achiko said half-jokingly as Izuku left the room. Achiko leaned back and laid down on the bed. Yet another fun and productive day at the Midoriya Foundation. She really did love it here. It's nice to see you again, sir. Mai and Uchi said as they welcomed Izuku into the lab. It's nice to see you two making progress so soon. Izuku greeted them. Right. Let's talk about this somewhere more comfortable. Mai said, before bringing them deeper into the facility. All three of them settled into one of the lab's break rooms. The room was designed to be as relaxing as possible. It was a white tile room, with various black chairs around the room, as well as two black couches that faced each other, with a coffee table in between. Uchi and Mai were sat on one couch, while Izuku was on the other, with a large number of papers and files between them. How goes the grim cyberization? Izuku asked as he leaned back into the couch. Well, the facility should be done within the next week. After that, we can get the project started properly. Me explained. Has any progress been made on Project Reaper? Was Izuku's next question as he looked over one of the files detailing the grim cyberization. Mai shook her head. No. The grim are still proving to be rather difficult to work with. I can't make too many augmentations without compromising practicality. I see, Izuku said as he continued to read over the files. Have you made any progress in researching the material of the grim themselves? How they manifest thought into physical matter? Mai shook her head again. No. The process of converting thought to matter is still currently unknown. Have you two ever heard of the study of cognitive matter and the cognitive world? Izuku asked. Only in passing, Mai said, getting a contemplative look. Ever since quirks came into existence, quirks involving emotions have proved that thoughts and feelings are more tangible than we'd first thought. And so people have tried to figure out more about the power and tangibility of emotions and how to access the cognitive world without the help of quirk. That's right. Due to how difficult it is to study things like this, and even more so, cognitive matter researchers are very, very rare. Izuku continued. That said, I got a very interesting offer recently. Wow, are you sure a little girl did that? Less than a week ago, Izuku was talking to Rin about the whole Yonda and Bakugo situation. I ask myself that every time she does something like this. Izuku sighed in response. But putting all that aside for now, do you think we'll be able to get past cognitive Bakugo now? Do you think your opinion of Bakugo's strength has lowered? Rin asked in response. Now, if Bakugo had just lost to Achiko, his opinion of his strength wouldn't have lowered all that much. But that wasn't the case. Bakugo didn't just lose, he got destroyed. He barely fought back during that whole encounter. In a way, Izuku would have never believed had he not seen it with his own eyes. A bit, Izuku admitted. Then we have a chance, Ren said. We'll have to check it out during our next session and, no, I'm talking to a patient right now, I'm sorry Midoriya, could you give me a minute? Of course. Take your time. Izuku said politely. And so Izuku waited for a couple of minutes and afterward, Ren came back on the phone. Sorry about that. My little sister is getting her PhD in cognitive matter research. Rain explained. And we were talking about how we're going to celebrate. Oh, congratulations. That's actually really impressive. I've heard cognitive matter research is a nightmare and you said your sister was like 18? That's amazing. Izuku praised. I thought I was doing impressive things at a young age. Heh, pretty sure your achievements still outdo hers, Run said in a joking tone, before suddenly changing into a more somber one. In all honesty, I'm worried about what she's going to do after she graduates. Cognitive matter and the cognitive world aren't research topics people are dying to fund. I'm worried she'll be stuck looking for a job for years. And just like that, the metaphorical light bulb over Izuku's head lit up. I haven't discussed it with him yet, I didn't want to get anyone's hopes up yet, Izuku explained to the two scientists. But from what I've seen, Futaba Akira is a very promising talent, both in cognitive matter research and computer programming. Do you think you could use someone of her talents? If we could understand the compassion of Grimm better, then perhaps we could improve them, Mai said. I also think perhaps chaos energy could help with her studies. If our theories are correct, it's technically what brought that subject into existence. So that's a yes? Izuku asked, wanting to be sure he didn't misunderstand her. Of course. Given how vast the applications of chaos energy are, you could hire a scientist in any field and we'd be able to use them. Mai told him. I see. Then I'll give him a call and see if I can hire her. Izuku smiled as he made a mental note. Putting that aside for now. What did you want to show me? Well, sir, I'd like to show you this. Achi opened one of the files and showed a picture of the multicolored sakura tree and a picture of the metal cactus. These are the results of Project Seed, sir. Using chaos energy, I've found out that quirks can not only gain quirks but something even more important. Plants get quirks differently from humans. Rather than each plant getting a unique quirk, the same type of plant will always get the same quirk. Meaning that if we can find a reliable way to gain chaos energy, resources from these plants can be renewable and even become a product we can sell. Izuku's eyes widened as the implications of this hit him all at once. That's incredible. Wait. Let's not get too ahead of ourselves. As interesting as that is, if we have no way of gaining chaos energy outside of Jin, then we can't do much with this. Mai, have your experiments with extracting chaos energy bore any fruit? Yes and no. Mai winced as she realized she had to explain this now. You see, I did find chaos energy in the stuff. But I ran into two issues. 1. The chaos energy one can gain from the stuff is very minute. And 2. It's not as pure or potent as what comes from Jin. My theory on that is that when chaos energy is mixed with DNA it changes. Hence why quirks are so different from each other. I'm currently working on a way to fix both of these issues, but that's gonna take some time. I've also contacted 2 more specialists to help this process along. Alright. Then until progress on that is made, I don't want any products or plans to be made around this stuff. Izuku told them. Yes, sir. The 2 of them nodded. With that said, I'd suggest you hire some more employees to take care of the menial work. Like paperwork and such. You'll find it significantly decreases your workload. Izuku told them. And it'll give you more time to work on important assignments. Yeah, I've been putting that off, Mai admitted sheepishly. Achi sighed. I'll take care of that, sir. After all, I don't want Mai to fall victim to overwork again. Izuku and Mai both looked away from her, knowing all too well they were guilty of this. And sir, I know you said not to make any products out of the plants, however, they may be something I can make that you may find useful. Achi said as she handed Izuku another file. The file contained a picture of a blueprint for a gas grenade. Do you recall the sakura tree you saw earlier? Achi told him. Each different colored petal on that tree has a different ability when exposed to organic life. The white flowers pacify whomever they touch, keeping them from harming anything or anyone else without doing any harm to them. I know the children can be a little much sometimes and are especially dangerous if they get out of control. So I thought this could be a harmless way to subdue them should the need arise. And you're sure this has no negative effects on the targets? Izuku asked skeptically. For the most part. We're still doing some testing, but so far from what we can glean there shouldn't be any sort of short-term or long-term side effects. But rest assured we won't even begin production of a prototype until we can be sure this won't bring harm to any potential victims. Me explained. I see. Then inform me when you've finished your testing. Izuku instructed them. If this works, then it could save lives in a worst-case scenario. Understood, sir. The two of them said. Well then, what else did you want to tell me? Izuku asked. Meanwhile, Fu, Kiba, Shiruku, Yami, Amai, Fuku, and Ken were all gathered in Fu's room. Alright, how close are we getting to the game's completion? Fu asked the room, getting right to the point as he was prone to do. I'm almost done with the story. But I've still got to do the post-game. Fuku explained. And I'm over halfway done with the designs for everything. But it'll take me a lot more time to finish those. I finished all the designs for the characters' clothes, Shiruka said with a troubled look. But I don't think I can help Fuku that much. I'm still not as good at drawing as her. Do you think there's anyone new here that's good at drawing? Ken asked. Well, Jin won't help, even if he could draw so he's out, Kiba said. Sheena can't seem to do anything, much less draw so she's out, Fu said. Niece can't remember anything, much less how to draw, Ken added. So that just leaves Alice and your aunts. Amai surmised. We can ask them about it later, Fu said. For now let's focus on the meeting. Yami, did you finish designing the monsters? Yami shook his head. Halfway. Okay, well Ken, Amai, how is the gameplay? Fu asked. It's mostly done, we're just working out some small points, Amai explained. But we should be done and ready to finish the game by the time everyone else is. And the music? Fu asked. Going pretty well. I've made some awesome stuff as upgrade, but I'm gonna need the game to be finished before I can really get to work on it. Ken said. I wish we had someone here who was good with music so I didn't just have to take your word on it. Fu sighed. Someone good with music, Fuku contemplated that for a moment before she recalled something. Wait. Sheena's good with music. Everyone turned towards her with a confused look. Sheena, are we talking about the same Sheena? Shiruko asked as she recalled her brief experience with the girl. The one who pricked herself over a dozen times trying to sew? The one who managed to burn cup ramen? Fu added. The one who couldn't even manage to wash dishes? Ken asked. The one who thinks the best way to build trust is to attack people? Amai asked, having heard about her from Yami. That Sheena? They all asked Fuku at the same time, causing her to gulp from the pressure. Well, one time I heard her singing and well, it was the most beautiful singing I've ever heard, in person that is, which I guess doesn't mean very much because I've never been around people who sing, the point is that she was really good at singing. Fuku explained frantically, blushing madly with embarrassment as she awkwardly tried to get her point across. That actually makes sense. Fu said after thinking for a second, causing attention to turn to him. Yanda has spent so much time trying to figure out what Sheena's talents are and failed. Which is odd because you can't be bad at everything. If anyone could figure something like that it would Yanda, unless it involved music. Oh yeah, Yanda's deaf. She would have no way of knowing that. Kiba snicked. That's actually kinda funny. Oh, it's about to get funnier, just wait for a second, Fu smirked, before falling silent. For a minute, there was silence and then... Suddenly a piercing cry of rage and sadness rang throughout the entire house. Why do you like messing with her so much? Kiba asked her brother. Because it's one of the most fun things to do for me, Fu answered. Now back to the topic. Just because she can sing doesn't mean she can do other music stuff. I mean, but maybe she does? Fuku shrugged nervously. I know she's dangerous, and kinda not smart, and she kinda messes up everything she tries, but maybe this is the one thing she's good at? Maybe we just aren't giving her a chance? I don't really know much about this girl, but I think we should also give her a chance. Amai agreed. Fu sighed. Well, the worst that can happen is that she doesn't know anything. So sure. Why not, I guess? Yanda had never wanted to smack someone as hard as she did right now. She had to use all her restraint as she sat on the bed, petting Esper for comfort, with Sheena on her knees in front of her. So let me get this straight. They asked you for help to make music for their game because apparently you can sing, and despite not having musical talent other than singing, you agreed, and now you're asking me, the deaf girl, for help in learning how to make music. Well, when she says it like that she makes me sound like an idiot. Sheena thought. You are an idiot. Yonda shouted at her, causing her to jump back a bit and fall on her butt. And Sheena could have sworn Esper was giving an amused look. Well, I just thought if I did good tea then maybe I could be friends with everyone. Sheena admitted tearfully. You know what? You're right. Yonda said, her tone suddenly turning strangely sweet. I'm sure that if you actually managed to pull this off, then everyone would be much nicer to you. Really? Sheena asked hopefully. Really? Yonda affirmed with a smile. Just one problem. What? Sheena asked. Oh, it's just the small fact that you are the most incapable person I've ever met. Yonda screamed, her tone returning back to genuine fury, once again causing Sheena to fall back, this time onto her back. Oh. Sheena groaned, and she could have sworn she heard the cat snicker. Yonda took a deep breath and rubbed her temples. No. No, that's not true. You won't be the most incapable person I've ever met. So long as you do one thing. And what is that? Sheena asked timidly, hoping not to get yelled at again. Just do something about it. Yonda answered simply. If you just try to do something about your problems instead of just complaining about them, then you will be far more capable than many people I've met. Okay, so what do I do? Sheena asked desperately. Well, I can't help much because A, I'm grounded and B, I'm deaf. Yonda sighed. And unfortunately, no one here is any good with music. So you're pretty much on your own. The only advice I can give you is to ask Father for some stuff to help you learn and read as many books on the subject as you can. That's all you can do? Sheena gulped fearfully, which only got worse when Yonda glared at her. Oh, I'm sorry, was I the one who made a promise I couldn't keep? Yonda asked sarcastically. No. Was I the one who went to a grounded deaf girl for music lessons? Also no. You're lucky I'm helping this much despite how much you've annoyed me. Now get out of my room and start learning before I let Esper use your face as a scratching post. EAP. Sheena jumped to her feet and immediately ran away. Oh, and Sheena, one more thing. Yonda told her, stopping the girl as she was about to leave the room. Like you said, if you succeed it will boost your reputation. With that said, even someone as stupid as you should understand what will happen if you fail. Sheena gulped once again, and now she could physically feel the pressure weighing on top of her. That's all now. But bye? Yonda said as she waved Sheena off, cueing her to leave. Sheena quickly did so, leaving the room and closing the door behind her. She had work to do. Ugh. Sheena groaned as she flopped onto a table in the library, surrounded by various books. It had been a whole day since she accepted that request, and things were not going well. Thanks to Izuku, she was able to quickly get her hands on some digital music-making equipment. However, she had very little success in actually using it, and so she spent the entire day up until this point, trying to figure out how to actually make music. But it was all so complicated. And hard to understand. It took her far too long to actually figure anything out, and there was so much more to learn. The game has to be out in just a couple of months. There's no way I can learn all this and make enough music in that short amount of time. Not to mention I still have to learn how to play actual instruments. Sheena cried as she once again slammed her head against the desk. There's no way I can do this. I'm gonna fail. Everyone's gonna be angry at me, and Yonda's gonna call me an idiot again. Sheena groaned as she looked down at her arm. Of course, she could fix this whole issue if she just used her quirk. But she really didn't want to. If she just used her quirk to give herself the talent, then she wouldn't be helping them out, it would just be her quirk. Was that all she was? Was her quirk the only good thing about her? Was that why she was so bad at everything else? Sheena wanted so badly to develop some talents and get this done with her own merit. But at the same time, she couldn't afford to fail and make her reputation even worse than it already was. Not to mention if she failed she'd be affecting others, not just herself. If she had a way to succeed and didn't use it, that would just be being selfish at this point. Sheena raised her head and both her arms, before turning her right arm into a scythe. It couldn't be helped, she could only do so much with so little time. And that's when the metaphorical light bulb lit up over her head. What am I looking at? Nara asked as she looked into the library and saw dozens of Sheenas looking at various books. The library was absolutely crawling with Sheenas, they were at every table and some were even sitting on the floor. All of them going through books at the same time as quickly and thoroughly as possible. And little did Nara know, but there were even more Sheenas running around the house, practicing instruments and musical software, figuring out things by trial and error. Meanwhile, other Sheenas were pulling up as many online tutorials and video guides as they could.
Es Sheena?
Nara asked the room of Sheenas, causing them all to look at her at once. Oi nada. Did you need to use the library? The Sheena closest to her asked as the other ones went back to their research. I was gonna go get a book, but what's going on here? Nara asked. Oh, well, I needed to learn something fast, so I killed my Unity and cloned myself a bunch of times. Sheena explained. I see, Nara said with a mix of befuddlement and curiosity. Why didn't you do this during any of your fights? Well, if anything happens to my clones, then it also happens to the main me once the 9 minutes are up. So if any of them get injured or die, then the real me will get injured or die. Sheena explained. And all the injuries add up too, so using this in a fight could put me in a lot of danger. And also dash. Poof. Suddenly, all the Sheenas except the one talking to Nara, which happened to be the real one. Sheena crumpled to the ground, her pupils dilated, as she just twitched on the ground while gasping for air.
Sheena?
Nara shouted out in a panic, kneeling down to try and see what was wrong with the girl. SSSSSSI side AFF effect. Sheena choked out through the intense pain she was in. Much like all the physical attributes of what happened to her clones would compile onto her when the 9 minutes were up, it was the same for the mental attributes. All the memories and information that her clones gathered in that time would be bundled up into her all at once. As you can imagine, that caused a bit of pain, in the form of a headache that could be compared to having your head slowly yet quickly crushed. In other words, an indescribable pain that incapacitated Sheena immediately. For the next few minutes, Sheena breathed in and out, while trying her best to deal with the pain, until eventually, it began to subside. Thank you, Sheena said as she clutched her head and Nara helped her to her feet. Are you gonna be okay? Nara asked. Do you need to go to Vera? Why would you do that to yourself? I need to learn something very quickly, Sheena said. I'll be fine. It's just pain. Yeah, but that looked like a lot of pain. Nara pointed out, concerned for the younger girl. It's okay. Sheena groaned. I just need a minute and then I can do it again. You're gonna do that again? Nara asked in shock. Are you crazy? Sheena shook her head. I have to work hard, I'm not very good at, well, everything. So if I don't do stuff like this, I won't be able to be useful or make anyone like me. Nara gave her a pitiful look. Now she understood. She knew how much loneliness hurt and she knew the lengths one would go to rid themselves of it.
Still that's.
I have to do it, Sheena said, giving Nara a determined look. Nara bit her lip as she looked down at the bony girl in front of her. She knew that look and she knew that there was little she could do to deter her. Okay. Just don't overdo it. Finally, released from that darn room. Yonda stretched her legs as she walked out of her room with Esper on her shoulder. It had been 2 weeks since Sheena had come to her for help, and now she can finally check up on her. Yonda walked all the way to the library, and what she saw was pretty much what she expected. The library was a mess, books were strewn all over the floor, and chairs were knocked over. Sheena herself was face down, presumably unconscious, on one of the tables. Well, it looks like all's going as planned. Yonda thought to herself as she walked into the library and casually approached Sheena. Yonda then flicked Sheena's head and got no response. And so she shook Sheena, also no response. She then lifted Sheena's head and took a look at her sleeping face. There were huge bags under her eyes, from many sleepless nights spent studying and learning everything related to music. Sheena had no doubt spent countless hours, pouring all her effort into trying to do an impossible task. Of course, Yonda knew this would happen. It took years for people to get proficient with instruments and music, enough to actually make something good. Even if Sheena used her quirk to increase the rate at which she could learn, it would still take quite some time for her to actually gain these skills. Especially because she pressured her to fear failure. But Yonda didn't need her to succeed, she only needed her to try. Oh no, Sheena. What happened? Yonda shouted with fake shock. Someone please. Come help. Almost immediately, Kiba ran and saw Sheena unconscious on the table. What happened? Sheena.
Sheena?
Kiba was so focused on Sheena that she didn't notice Yonda smirking off to the side. Just as planned. Ugh. Sheena groaned as her eyes fluted and she regained consciousness. What dash? She opened her eyes and found herself in the medwing, laying down in one of the beds, with Izuku, Fu, Nara, Yonda, Ken, Shiruku, Yami Vera, and Kiba standing over her.
She's awake. Thank goodness.
Kiba breathed a sigh of relief. I told you. She is simply exhausted. She only needs bed and rest. Vera explained. What happened? Sheena groaned. Her body felt weak and her head was pounding. Just trying to move at this point would be painful for her. You overworked yourself. Izuku sighed. I swear overwork is the curse of the Midoriya family. I told you not to overdo it. Nara scolded her.
I'm sorry.
Sheena apologized as she started to cry.
It's just I.
You wanted to learn how to make music because you didn't actually know how to do it when you agreed to help us. Fu surmized. Sheena's face went white. Yonda told us, Fu explained.
I'm sorry.
Sheena apologized again as more tears poured from her eyes and she readied herself to get yelled at for her lies and failure. I shouldn't have said I could do it. I just dash. We get it. Ken interrupted her.
Huh?
Sheena's expression went blank after hearing that. Safe to say that wasn't the response she expected. Okay, at first I was pretty upset, but then I thought about it, and honestly, I get it, Ken admitted. Yeah, Ken definitely would do something that's stupid to get friends, Nara added, much to her brother's chagrin. We were treating you rather coldly, Shiruku admitted with a frown. But still to go this far, Nara told us about that duplication thing and how painful it was.
How many times did you do that?
I didn't really count. Sheena admitted as she sniffled and wiped away her tears.
Sozi.
You don't need to apologize. If anything, I should be apologizing for not noticing this and putting a stop to it, Izuku said. I really need to hire more employees. As caretaker said, you need to apologize, you just need to promise never to do that again, Kiba said firmly, glaring at the girl for extra effect. Sheena gulped. I promise. I won't do that ever again. Good. Kiba smiled. That being said, I'm very touched that you went through all that effort just for us. Your determination is praiseworthy indeed. Does that mean you don't hate me anymore? Sheena asked hopefully. We didn't really hate you, just kinda mistrusted you, but I'd say you'd worked hard enough for our trust, Shiruka said with a gentle smile. Yeah, we're cool. Just don't do anything suspicious.
Got it?
Ken asked. Yes.
Got it. Thank you.
Sheena said enthusiastically, her tears flowing freely, now tears of joy instead of fear or sadness. Yonda smirked in the background. She had done her job well. Career sheets. Izuku had decided to hand these out to all the kids who hadn't already said what they wanted to be in the future. He told them that they didn't have to give it to him now or any time soon, he just wanted to get them thinking about the future. Which is what Sheena was currently contemplating in her room as she looked down at the sheet. What do I want to be in the future? Sheena thought to herself. In truth, Sheena hadn't really thought about a career. Back during her days with the MLA, she only ever thought of escaping her life as an assassin. And when she got to the Midoriya Foundation, her thoughts were occupied with thoughts of dealing with potential assassins, getting people to like her, and wondering if she should avoid Yonda or not. So now that it was brought to her attention, what should she decide? Sheena was not incredibly talented, at least not without having to use her quirk to cheat. The only thing she could really call herself skilled at was fighting. So should she lean into that? Become a hero like so many of the others here? She could. Her quirk would be just as good for a hero as it would be for an assassin. And with all the resources she had here, there was no doubt she could become a powerful hero. But is that what she wanted? Sheena wasn't particularly fond of violence. She had no problem using violence if she felt like it was needed, but did she really want to make it her job? Not really, but what would she rather do instead? Sheena thought about it for a while, but in the end, she couldn't come up with anything. Knock knock knock. Hey Sheena. Want to come play around with us? Mina asked from the other side of the door. Immediately, Sheena threw her paper aside. This could wait, she was finally going to live the life she wanted and play around with others. Apparently, by play around, Mina meant that she and Shiruka would be playing dress-up using her as the doll. Which for Sheena meant sitting in a chair with her eyes closed, which Shiruka and Mina did as they pleased. Can they really make me look pretty? Sheena thought to herself skeptically. She was well aware that her appearance could be summed up as skeleton in a pale skin suit, and most people wouldn't exactly call her pretty. Sheena had heard that makeup could have drastic effects on one's looks, but wasn't this asking a bit much? She sat in that chair for what felt like a long time. But she was a patient girl, and to be honest, the longer it went on, the more curious she became about what exactly they were doing.
"All right, open your eyes,"
Mina said with barely contained glee. Sheena hesitated for a second, a little scared of what she might see, but she decided to just rip the band-aid off and see what happened. And when she opened her eyes, she couldn't believe what she saw. Her normally bone-dry pale skin now looked radiant and properly moisturized, making her think of the moon rather than a bone. Her sunken eyes and bony face were completely hidden by the makeup, which also did the job of making her face not only look more normal but actually rather cute. She was wearing a wig that gave her long flowing silky white hair that almost seemed to glow just like her skin. Overall, she actually looked like a girl that someone might actually call pretty or even cute. It seemed impossible, but here it was staring back at her.
"So what do you think?"
Mina asked with a big grin on her face. "I'd say we've done pretty well."
It's amazing,"
Sheena gasped, her eyes shining like stars.
How did you do that? It's like magic?"
Did you use a quirk or something?
"How did you make me look like this?" "No quirks. Just the magic of makeup,"
Mina said, proudly holding up her various makeup brushes. "I can teach you if you want."
Yes. Yes. Please."
Sheena launched herself out of her chair and clung to Mina, begging her to teach her secrets.
"Well, that can wait. Because first..."
Shiruka went over to the side and pulled out a rack of dresses. "I have a bunch of dresses for you to try. I'll let you pick which one you want to try first." Sheena looked at the dresses in amazement. "Did you make all of those for me?" "Of course," Shiruka said with pride. "It was pretty hard to find the right clothes for you given that your normal appearance is rather unique, but with Mina's help we were able to make it so your look matches the dresses a bit more."
"Yup. And we've got even more makeup for each dress you choose,"
Mina told her.
"So come on, pick one."
Sheena looked at all the dresses in awe. Never did she have the option to wear such pretty clothes. Back when she was part of the MLA, she could only ever wear boys' clothing. Finally, her dreams were coming true. She was really a part of the Midoriya family. Sheena and the two of them played dress-up for hours, with Sheena putting on so many different dresses, with all different kinds of makeup and accessories. And she was just having the time of her life. Her latest dress was a black and white ruffled dress that had ruffles even around her hands. She had on black shoes, white stockings, and a white hairpiece in her now black wig. As for makeup, she was wearing lovely black lipstick and nail polish, on top of what she had on already. Sheena spun around in her dress, with a huge smile on her face. Never did she imagine she could ever look so pretty. "Man, the whole goth Lolita look really suits you, Sheena." Mina praised her, taking a few pictures of the younger girl for good measure. "Oh. Why don't you sing something? I think you would look dazzling if you sang while wearing that outfit." Shiruka clapped her hands together and gave her the puppy dog spider eyes. Sheena blushed and hid her face behind her hands. Are you sure? I still haven't practiced a lot."
"I'm sure you'll be fine. Come on. Show us that voice Fuku told us about."
Shiruku encouraged her. "Okay. Only a little." Sheena took a deep breath and thought of a song to sing for a second before something came to mind. I'm never any good, I know it because it's true."
"Sheena-san.
You don't have to tell me, I know I never will be anywhere as good as her. So stop comparing me to her again, I don't want to hear it said. Leave me alone right now. All aching deep within my heart only weighs me down." And with another breath she stopped.
"So? What did you think?"
Sheena asked shyly. "Wow, Fuku was right. You are a great singer." Shiruka gave her a big applause as her eyes sparkled with amazement.
"Yeah, you totally looked like an idol."
Mina shiriad.
"What's an idol?"
Sheena asked. Shiruka gasped.
"You haven't heard of an idol?"
"Quickly, Mina. Bring me my computer. This must be fixed at once." Sheena stared at the screen in amazement as Shiruku played an idol concert on her laptop. It looked almost magical. A dark stadium lit up by one dazzling girl at the center and thousands of adoring fans. The music was just as pretty as the girl singing it, and the way she moved and danced was hypnotizing. She couldn't take her eyes off her if she wanted to. She watched the whole thing to the end, never looking away once, and when the screen went black, she saw her reflection on the screen. A pretty girl in an eye-catching dress, with a voice that at least everyone else around her seemed to think was beautiful. Could she make this work? Ding! Mina checked her phone. Oh, looks like it's time for lunch. Hey, Sheena, do you still want to wear your makeup to the cafeteria?
I'd say do it. Shock everyone with your new look.
We would have to change the dress first. We wouldn't want to get food all over it now, would we? Shiruka said, looking over to the dresses.
Sheena nodded.
Yes, please. I want to see what everyone thinks. The other two girls smiled and got ready to go to work.
Where's Mina?
Izuku asked as he served the children their food in the cafeteria. He'd texted her to come here so she could serve food to the kids who didn't come to the cafeteria, but she was taking quite a while.
Sorry, I'm late, boss.
He heard Mina cry as her footsteps could be heard coming down the hall. He looked over to the entrance and saw Mina and Shiruka running down the hall.
Sozi.
I was finishing up something and it took a little while. Mina explained to Izuku bashfully.
What exactly were you doing?
Izuku asked. Mina smiliad. Look for yourself. She and Shiruka moved aside and revealed Sheena's new appearance. Now she was wearing a less frilly blue dress, with a pair of blue shoes and a blue bow in her wig, which was white once again. She also wore very light blue makeup, which gave her an almost mystical glow.
Sheena?
Oh wow, how pretty! Izuku praised, immediately going up to Sheena to support her. I hardly recognized you.
Wait. That's Sheena?
Kiba cried out in shock from her seat. No way, she looks so pretty. Kei gasped.
How'd that happen?
Netsa shouted in amazement and confusion. Many of the kids ran over to Sheena, wanting to get a closer look at her new look. Sheena's face had never been so red in her life. So many people looking at her with star-like eyes of admiration, calling her pretty, cute, and the like. Oh, she could get used to this. Nise looked down at her career sheet with confusion. The girl couldn't remember her past, but now she was supposed to think about her future? Of course, Izuku said she didn't have to fill it in now, but now that it was brought to her attention, she couldn't not think about it. Her skill set right now consisted of watching anime and eating snacks. Not exactly something she could make a living off of. Naturally, her thoughts went to her quirk. Once she got better control of it, it was extremely useful. She could open doors without getting up, get snacks without getting up, get the remote without getting up. The only time she had to get up was to use the bathroom. And theoretically, she could use her quirk to move herself to the bathroom, along with her chair, so she still wouldn't have to get up. Maybe she could get a job that didn't require her to get up. You're gonna get fat. Once again with that mysterious voice in her head. Seriously, she felt like the protagonist of a video game. She was just waiting for her village to get destroyed and leave her the only survivor. Actually, given this place's history, she shouldn't really be thinking about that. But the voice in her head had a point. If she just sat around forever, she'd get fat, so maybe she'd do something more active? Nise racked her brain. What would be the perfect job for her? Ding! Nise grabbed her phone with her vector and brought it to her face. It was a notification for Kiba's stream. Another ding went off, but this time it was for the light bulb that just lit over her head. Izuku didn't expect to get these career sheets back so soon. Maybe he'd put a bit too much pressure on them. Still, he was curious to see what they put down. First up, Otoko. The boy wrote gardener. About what he thought he would be right. Next was Mu, and he wrote underground hero? Izuku hadn't known what to expect from the shy boy, but it was certainly not this. He'd have to talk to him about this later. Yonda put down Midoriya Foundation assistant as her first choice, predictable, detective as her second choice, not surprisingly, and assassin as her last choice, given that she put a little smiley face next to that he hoped that was a joke. Sheena put down idle. So that's what that makeup thing was about? With hero as a secondary choice. Alice wanted to be a hero as well, most likely inspired by her aunt. Jin wanted to be a professional sleeper. Which apparently was a real job. He'd have to look into that later. And lastly, Nise wanted to be a YouTuber. Well, maybe Kiba could help her with that. Well, at least he had a clear idea of what his children wanted for their futures. And now he can plan around that. Time to get to work. Come on, Ron. Can you tell me what this special surprise is? In a black van cruising down the road was one Ron Akira, hands on the wheel. Next to him was his younger sister, a young 19-year-old woman with long orange hair. Although you'd think she was younger given her height and attire. She wore an off-shoulder white top with a red splatter pattern on it, a pair of shorts that were a bit too short for Ren's and her father's liking, a light brown coat with a fluffy hood rim, a pair of black boots, as well as black glasses and headphones. This was Futaba Akira. Ren had a confident smirk and glint in his eyes that told Futaba that whatever this was, it was something big and she was getting antsy with anticipation. No, where's the fun in that? Ren answered back cheekily. Just sit tight, we'll be there soon. Rein? Why are we going to the Midoriya Foundation? Futaba asked as they sat right in front of the gates that lead to the Midoriya property. You're not going to make me watch you work, are you? Because from the outside that's the same as watching you take a nap. Not quite. Ren chuckled as the gates opened in front of them. Just wait. The two drove into the forest, down the main road towards the Foundation main building. Futaba looked out the window as they drove and saw a seer pass them by. So that's a Grimm. Beings made of negative thought made manifest. If only I could get my hands on one of those. I wonder if they're similar to the shadows in Ren's palaces but in the physical world. As Futaba was staring at the passing Grimm, they eventually made it to the Foundation building. Whoa. It looks even bigger in person. Futaba said as they arrived at the main gates, where Izuku was waiting for them. Wait, is that Director Midoriya? That would be him, Ren replied as he stopped the car in front of the gates. As he stopped, Izuku went towards the car and much to Futaba's confusion he then entered the back seat of the car. Hello, you must be Futaba Akira, Izuku said with a friendly smile. I am Director Midoriya Izuku, head of the Midoriya Foundation. It's a pleasure to meet you. I'm glad you agreed to this interview. Interview? Futaba's eyes went wide and she quickly turned to look at her snickering brother. Rein. What the hell did you get me into? Izuku gave her a confused look. Wait, do you not know what's going on here? No. Rin just told me to get in the car, I have a surprise for you. Futaba explained frantically as she glared at Rin. Rin, what the hell, you smug bastard? I see. Izuku sighed, catching on to Ren's little prank as they started to drive away from the main facility and towards the lab. Well then please let me explain. I heard about you from Ren and thought that a cognitive matter researcher would be a great help to my scientific branch. Oh yeah, I almost forgot you opened one of those, Futaba recalled before her eyes went wide with realization. Wait. Does that mean I might get the chance to study those Grimm? And actually get a real job on top of that? Hell yeah. Don't get too ahead of yourself, you still have to pass the interview. Rein reminded her. Alright. Wait, are we gonna do the interview in the car? Futaba asked. Izuku shook his head. No, the interview isn't with me, I'm just here to watch. And with that, they started coming up on the lab. Whoa. Futaba whistled when she saw the lab, amazed that she may have the opportunity to do her research there. They parked in front of the lab and all three of them exited the car. The person in charge of your interview will be the head of the scientific division, Izuku explained as they headed toward the lab. She's a rather nice person, so don't feel too nervous. They opened the door and entered the reception hall, where they found Mai and Uchi speaking with two other men. The first was a rather plump old man with gray puffy hair and a huge bushy gray beard that obscured most of his face. He wore a white lab coat, a blue and white spotted tie, brown pants, and black shoes. The other man was seemingly much younger, with smooth black hair styled in a man bun coming out of his white hat and a much smaller beard only covering his chin. He was very tan and very built, which was easy to see given as he didn't wear a shirt under his open lab coat, exposing his abs, and his gray shorts did little to hide his toned legs. All four of them immediately noticed Izuku's, Ren's, and Futaba's arrival and turned to look at them. Oh. Mr. Midoriya. It's good to see you. And you two must be Ren and Futaba. Mai greeted them. Aloha. The tan man greeted them in an American accent. Mr. Midoriya, it's a pleasure to meet you. The older man greeted. Allow me to introduce myself. I am Dr. Kunran Hikari, a specialist in robotics. And I'm Professor John Hata. Just call me John. I'm a genetic engineer. The tan man introduced himself with a grin. Nice to meet ya, boss. It's my pleasure. Izuku gave them a polite bow. I just came to see Ms. Futaba here off and welcome you two of the Midoriya Foundation. I hope you all do good work and find the conditions manageable. And Ms. Futaba, I wish you good luck in your interview. And with that, Izuku took his leave, with Rin following behind him. I'll be outside when you're done. Good luck. Mai and Futaba sat down in Mai's office, on opposite sides of her desk. Sorry for all the commotion. We just got 2 new employees at the same time you showed up. Me explained. I'm Mei Rujikan, head of the Midoriya Foundation's scientific research branch. A pleasure to meet your acquaintance. Same, Futaba said before giving a nervous laugh. My name is Futaba Akira, specialist in cognitive matter research. At your service. You don't need to be nervous. We've looked over your resume and we're very impressed with your work. Mai praised her. And given your relationship with Mr. Akira, we can be fairly certain you're not an assassin. Which is the most important thing really. Oh yeah, I guess with all those villains out for Midoriya's blood, finding people you can trust to just walk around your lawn must be pretty tough. Futaba sympathized. There was a time when she didn't let people in because of perceived danger, but this was a much more real and serious threat. Yes. So this is more for the sake of better getting to know you. Mai continued. Get her a better idea who I'm working with, you know. Yeah, I get it. Make total sense. Futaba agreed. She wasn't feeling any less nervous despite Mai's words, given what was at stake. She knew that finding people who finance cognitive matter research was difficult, to say the least. If this didn't work, she may not find another opportunity for her research to be funded for a long, long time. If ever. And she doubted she'd get a chance as good as this ever again. Now, first of all, I know this may be a stupid question, but why exactly do you want to work at the Midoriya Foundation? Mai asked, typing something into her computer. Well, I'm real jazzed about the whole notion of having a job and doing what I spent my entire life working up to, Futaba replied humorously, feeling a little more confident when she saw Mai chuckle at her response. Yeah, I figured, Mai said. So what made you want to study cognitive matter? It's a pretty rough field to study. One of the most difficult paths for any aspiring scientist to walk, and most that do, don't find any success. I'm curious what made you decide to pursue this? It's complicated. Futaba sighed as her expression dropped into a frown, and she suddenly found it very hard to look Mai in the eye. My mom was a cognitive matter researcher and, can we just leave it at that? It's pretty personal. Of course. I get the gist. Mai said sympathetically. Now then, what do you want most out of this job? Fame? Fortune? Something to name after yourself? Or are you in it for the pure desire to discover more unfound secrets? Would you judge me if I said a little bit of everything? Futaba asked a bit sheepishly. Not at all, Mai responded brightly. I'm glad you're being honest. I appreciate you being yourself during this interview. Really helps the whole getting to know you part. Now, let's get to discussing the terms of employment, shall we? Meanwhile, Izuku and Run were outside by the car, drinking some coffee. Thanks again for getting Futaba this job, I can't tell you how much appreciated, Run said casually. Hopefully she'll be the one doing me a favor with her work, Izuku replied as he sipped his coffee. But either way, it's my pleasure to help where and when I can. It only took me one conversation and an hour of my life to help someone else in such a major way, I don't see why I had any reason not to. Part of me wishes people were more like you. Rain chuckled. But the other part of me knows that if that were the case the human race may have died out long ago. Heh. Yeah, probably for the best. Izuku acknowledged. Although wish people could be a bit more kind. At the very least so those kids wouldn't have had to suffer so much. Yeah, that would make both our jobs easier, huh? Rain mused. Either that or put us out of a job entirely. But honestly, I wouldn't mind. Same. Izuku agreed, taking another sip of his coffee. Speaking of jobs, you look like you're in better health. I see getting a secretary really improved things for you, Ren commented. You plan on hiring any more personnel anytime soon? Kinda have to. I'm only gonna get more kids, which means more work. Izuku explained. You wouldn't happen to have any more talented friends looking for work, would you? Particularly as a cook or teacher? Ren shook his head and laughed. No. Definitely not. I'm the only member of my group who can cook at all, and well, we had kinda a thing with teachers back when we were around your age. Wow, that made me feel old. You're far from old, they call you the young rising star after all. Izuku reminded him. That's because anyone else doing well in my field is old as dirt, Ren said dismissively. I swear with you and Futaba the age that people have to be successful decreases more and more. Actually never mind, some people are successful out of the womb because they happen to get lucky. I get what you mean. But there's little that can be done about it. Izuku said, recalling Bakugo. We just need to help out the less fortunate until they can become successful themselves. Cheers to that, Ren said. So do you have your eye on anyone for the chief and teacher roles? I do actually. People who no one would ever expect me to hire. Izuku explained. Former villains. Former villains, huh? Ren didn't seem all too fazed by that outrageous statement. I'm all for giving people a chance, but at the same time you need to be certain they won't hurt the kids. Although I guess you already know that, which is why you haven't hired them yet. Pretty much. Izuku sighed. I have to hire people who the MLA couldn't possibly expect me to hire, as well as people so desperate that they're willing to get a psych probe. And these people fit my criteria. Once I get a psych probe on them, I'll know for sure if I can trust them. Even knowing that you're still hesitant to trust people. It's fine. Ren assured him. You've taken great strides when it comes to not doing everything yourself. But progress doesn't have to come all at once. Wait till you feel comfortable. But don't stall. Work towards improvement carefully and steadily. Right. Izuku nodded. Thank you. Ding. Ren took out his phone and saw that Futaba had texted him. Got the job. Gonna start right now. Pick me up later. Should have seen that coming. Ren shook his head with a fond smile on his face. Well, looks like my schedule suddenly cleared up. Wanna check out my cafe? Izuku thought about it for a second. I haven't left the grounds in a while, so sure. But only if it's a brief visit. Got it. Ren agreed as they both got in his care. While we're there, I can teach you how to make coffee. Thought you said that was a secret? Izuku asked as he buckled his seat belt. Rein smirked. For you, I'll make an exception. Besides, you probably need it. And that's it for today. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, please like, subscribe, share the video and support the original writer. See you in the next video.